and I'll call us to order with our statement of authority. Um, the Westminster Historic District Commission derives its authority from Chapter 164, Article 9A of the City Code, which is authorized by the Maryland Code Annotated Land Use Article Division 1, Single Jurisdiction Planning and Zoning, Title 8. Historic Preservation. The qualifications of the Westminster Historic District Commission are on file at the City Administration Building at 56 West Main Street, and the file is open to the public. Have you all had an opportunity to look over the minutes? I'm hearing nothing. Maybe people are muted.
Madam Chair, I have one correction to make, and that is all the way at the end of the minutes. I believe your name should be on there, sign them, as opposed to mine.
Oh, well, that would be good. Okay.
Andrew, would you mind putting the minutes up on the screen?
I will put those up now.
That's crazy. I would have normally caught something like that, I would think. Yeah, Dean, you caught that for sure.
And we will make that change.
All right, anything else? Eagle-eyed Dean, good deal.
Nothing from me.
Nothing for you, okay. This is attachment 715, I can close that. I'm sorry, I closed the summary and closed everything with it. So hold on a half a second while I call up my computer with my stuff on it. All right. So do I hear a motion to accept the summary as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'm happy to second it.
Fabulous. All in favor, indicate by putting your thumbs up in the picture. And I think that sounds like thumbs up all around. Good deal. Okay. We have no old business today, so let's move on to new business. And we have an application for facade improvement for the business at 143 West Main Street. Ms. Anderson, would you like to provide a summary for us?
Sure. Yes, Madam Chair. A little background about our community legacy grant. The city has yielded improvements valued at nearly $3.5 million to date. Such grant funding has been used to maintain and enhance some of Westminster's most important downtown buildings and businesses, and has contributed to improving the attractiveness and revitalization of the core downtown area. And the commission should base their review of the application, and there it is, and decide on the appropriate funding level based on the following criteria. It is a 50-50 matching grant. The estimated increase in property value after the facade improvement is completed, the extent of historic preservation made to the building, the percentage of private investment versus public investment, whether the project will be completed within a 6-month time frame, and if the applicant is a first-time facade improvement grant applicant. The commission should also base their review on the City of Westminster Facade Improvement Program Overview and Guidelines, which each of you were provided a copy of that. The applicant should be able to clearly demonstrate how their project will contribute to improving Westminster's downtown business community and historic character. Recommendation. City staff recommends the Historic District Commission review the attached facade improvement application and recommend the funding level for the project. And I hope everyone received the attachments, which they are right here. And I'd also like to introduce to you, Madam Chair, the owner of the business, Dawn DiMario. She will be here to answer any questions if you have them. And welcome, Dawn.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Don. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you so much.
So to start things off, Sandy, I just have one small technical question.
Yes.
And that's because I'm far more familiar with our tax credits than I am the facade improvement program. I noticed that mulch was included as part of the estimate, which is a landscaping feature. And we're usually silent on landscaping features. Can you tell me how the two programs attenuate mulch?
Well, it is a facade improvement, and we do like garden beds in a front yard, things that would improve the front facade.
All right. So would our commission normally be silent on things that really have no plus or minus to the historic fabric, or would we comment and just say, you know, the whole package is fine, even though we would normally ourselves not fund mulch? What would you recommend?
I would recommend if mulch is not something you feel comfortable funding, then that's fine. We could take that out. And as always, this will be reviewed by Maryland Historic Trust. It does have to go up to them for final approval.
And can we ask Dawn for some clarification on that? Because in the application that I'm seeing, I don't see any labor for the mulch. So I wasn't sure that that was part of the overall picture, but I wasn't sure if she was asking for funds to actually pay for any of that garden work.
So that's correct, because that was, I just answered the question with the description of improvements, but I've actually already done the mulching and planted flowers and just beautified the front of we have such a beautiful porch there. And we welcomed guests, thank goodness, May 20th. So it was really important to me to get at least where the guests would walk the sidewalks around the building. They park in the back, and then they come around the side of the building to the front. So I didn't include that with labor, and I didn't include the expenses either. I didn't know how detailed to get as far as which improvements, but that wasn't part of the project cost.
Okay. So
the cost of the bushes and the cost of the flowers, the mulch, that was nothing. There was nothing in the estimate project costs for that. And then no labor costs, because we just did it when we were quarantined.
Sure. All right, so essentially this project, that should kind of just be whited out because it's really not a part of future work that's going to be done.
Yes, I apologize for that.
Nope, no problem at all. Sometimes it's hard to tease out, you know, what's a hope and a wish and what's mid-project. So, and everything else you've listed is coming up. It's not completed or begun in any way.
Coming up, well, I would love to do it sooner than later, but we were waiting for the approval.
From
I
us?
think what Chris means is none of that other work has started yet, correct?
I'm sorry, you broke up.
None of that other work has started yet?
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. We did power wash and we did paint, but we haven't repaired anything. So I wanted to just put a coat of paint on. And I know that colors have to be approved for this kind of grant, but I just wanted to get a coat of paint on because everything was chipping off. And quite frankly, I needed a project for my children and myself when we were quarantined, and I wanted it to look really nice with the guests coming in. So it's not done, certainly not done to any standards that a professional would do, but we did make it pretty enough. So if you've noticed, like the shutters haven't been done at all, the rotted boards have not been done, none of the hard work where it would take a contractor, but my daughters and myself rolled paint on the building without fixing first. That sounds kind of silly probably to you guys, but I just wanted it to be nice for, we were closed for so long, and we wanted to welcome people back and make them feel, just give them a nice place to, we're using the front porch actually as our distancing waiting room, and it just didn't look nice. So I just wanted to make it pretty.
So as I understand that certainly, and I'm sure you haven't done anything horrible. It's just that we can't pay for things that work that's already done before our approval. So if this has any budget impact, that's kind of where the rub is we can't pay for stuff that someone did. What's to say someone couldn't say, how about 6 months ago, or how about 2 years ago?
I totally understand. And I don't think that I really don't think that I truly understood the magnitude of the project. I certainly did read it, and we got quotes for it to be painted correctly. But I really didn't feel comfortable with our guests coming and sitting and using that area as a waiting room without power washing it, cleaning it. It's just it was so dirty. And once we got the orders, we just went full steam ahead. Again, none of the work we did was in the estimate, not even the paint that we bought, because it was really just stuff that we had laying around to make it pretty.
And I think that's the important delineation, right? Because tonight we're discussing the estimate. None of the things that she's done so far are included in that estimate, if I'm understanding correctly. So I think that we're good to go with continuing to discuss the estimate itself.
I just wanted to answer in good faith that if you drove by, it certainly looks beautiful, but it's amateur work to make it, just to Band-Aid it, because we got the go-ahead order.
Well, Josh, I wanted to comment on your feedback. So the estimate total was $31.90. The project total was 45, around 45.20. So there is an extra 1,000 there. So it seems like all the work that is part of this project is not covered in that estimate. Dawn, could you clarify that the difference there?
No, I didn't realize that. Did I forget an estimate?
No, Aaron, I think that the estimate that you see on the screen right there, 1330, should be added to the page that has Dawn's listing.
Okay.
So there's a few estimates. There's one from a painter, and then because the painter isn't going to fix the rotted boards and the porch railings and things. He's not a contractor. He's a licensed painter. So there's a few estimates there.
Got it.
But not anything for the mulch and the plants and anything like that.
Okay. Can I ask about the replacement of some of the smaller elements,
Sure.
boards, things like that? We use a term all the time that's called replacement in kind. So that means basically the wood is about the same thing. It's wood, and if you were to casually look at it, you wouldn't see that there's different balusters along your front areas that you're replacing. This doesn't mean it has to be painstakingly perfectly matched, but there's got to be a little effort so that walking by from the outside, it doesn't look like square balusters with round ones. Have you thought about this estimate matching essentially what you have so that it's casually looks the same?
Absolutely. So I pay attention to details and aesthetics. Something aesthetically pleasing to me is inviting to not just our guests, but to the community. I just love our Main Street. I love the building, and we literally, you won't know that anything new is on there because we're going to do exactly, we're going to fabricate the caps exactly how they are now. Some of them are only a few years old, but nobody would know that. They just weren't done with the right wood before we rented the building. So that's why, like the upper, the spa has a 2-level front porch. It's mainly the upper porch that is much different than the lower porch. It's not, I guess, from the 1900s. I know the house is that old, early 1900s, but it doesn't have the intricate railings that the bottom porch does. So my contractors pointed out that they just used the different wood on there whenever they repaired it, which could have been 5 years or 10 years. We've only been there since 2015, and they're just mush. So everything that we're going to do is going to look exactly the same. We're not the owners of the building, so we did clear all this with Dave Johansson as well. And he is the one who prompted, why don't you apply for a facade grant?
Right.
You know, that he let us know there was such a program, but so we certainly wouldn't change the aesthetics of the building because we didn't get that permission from the landlord either.
Got it. All right. So I would probably condition this, Sandy, by saying that this is a replacement in kind. And basically, there's a little bit of a sliding scale there, but essentially, you shouldn't be able to, you know, stand on the street next year and pick out your improvements. They should blend in. They don't have to be identical, but close, you know, close enough that it doesn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is not really an aesthetics thing. It's a preservation thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we don't actually control paint colors. That's just not what we do. We're really looking for preservation of the original look, feel, and material of the home or the business. So, you know, we're a little bit different than some other historic commissions. We don't come down on colors because you know what? Colors can always be changed next year. We would hope there's not a purple color house, but that's not our call. Our call is the actual fabric of the structures. And so we're not that controlling about paint. That's the cat out of the bag. Do we have any other questions from our commissioners?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. And this probably is more for Sandy. Do you know, Sandy, whether this property had received an earlier facade grant for the improvements that Dave Johansson made to it
It has
several years ago?
It has not received community legacy funds.
Yeah, because I remember when Dave Johansson was working on the property, and I remember when those railings on the upper porch were kind of dumbed down.
Yeah.
The original railings look much more historically appropriate. I still don't know whether they were original.
Yeah. I would love to see a picture of that, actually. I would love to see what they used to look like. Because that would be neat to take them back, I think. That would be cool.
We actually
all
have
of the spindles, all of the pickets on the railing were turned. You know,
Wow.
they had scroll work.
Oh my
They were just
goodness.
plain rectangles.
And we actually have a pretty good inventory of most of our historic houses in a book that was done for the bicentennial.
Yeah.
And Sandy has some CDs somewhere, I think. Do you
Yes,
still
I
have?
do.
So you could share one of those with Dawn.
I would love to see it.
It's
Those-
just,
I think that is actually available online.
oh, that's right.
Yes, you are correct, Mr. Vice Chair. That is on the Historic District Commission webpage. The Building of Westminster by Christopher Weeks.
Right.
Could you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
It's The Building of Westminster by Christopher Weeks.
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, it's a great reference. It's been updated a little bit, but essentially it's a snapshot of the bicentennial. And
That's awesome.
yeah.
How do I spell Christopher? How do I spell the last name? Wait,
Like
Christopher.
W-E-E-K-S.
Are you saying K as in?
As in kryptonite.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm gonna look that up. I'm excited.
All right. Anything else, Dean?
Yes.
Here's the book, the cover of the book.
Can't see you.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, I know it's pretty small.
Yeah.
Can you put it? Can you show it one more time?
It's a basic handbook for anybody who cares about structures in the city. It has
We
the
love
real,
that.
it has the, it's out of print, unfortunately, but it is online.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I believe Mr. Depot has a question for you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it wasn't a question. It was just more clarification. The two estimates are separate estimates. If you combine both estimates, that's where you come up with the total value of the 42, or I forget what the actual amount was. The
45.
4520 is adding both those estimates together. The first estimate is the cleaning, painting. The second one is related to repair. So that was a little confusing. The other thing too about the flowers in the staff report, we did not list that as one of the elements that we were including as part of the facade improvement grant funding. Because I agree, I didn't see anything in their program that allows for planting. So if you look at the staff report, we did not list that. And again, that's just for clarification purposes.
Yeah. I think this is a good lesson to all of us, that it needs to be super clear about exactly what we're considering. Because I do find it interesting what people are planning to do, but if we have no input on it, or it's already happened, I think it's difficult for the record to keep clear and to keep us from, commenting on things that aren't really within our purview. So that's great. All right, are there any other questions?
My question is just an educational question for myself, so forgive me, Dawn. But I believe this is the first circumstance with me being here so far where we are discussing an application from a leasee and not the building owner. And I saw in the documents, that we have to, that potentially you have to have authorization from the building owner and stuff. And so is that something that Sandy lines up, or is it just the fact that she has a lease? Is that enough to authorize it? I am not pushing back in any shape, way, or form. I'm just, it's just a new circumstance to me. So I'm asking how we handle that.
Okay, I will definitely get the building owner to sign off on this before it goes to MHT. But I've already spoke with him about the project and he's good with it.
Yeah, he's good.
I'm sure this is the kind of thing that Dave would be all about. So
Yes.
It doesn't
Yeah.
state that anywhere. I apologize for not having that. It didn't state that on the application. It wasn't really clear that you needed the owner and the tenant, I guess. Usually, you usually just have the owner, right? So I was just a little proactive. Maybe a little bored.
No
We were
problem, Dawn.
quarantined.
We've actually have been in the past approached by lessees. I did some consulting at the Opera House with lessees about a dance studio. It never turned into an actual application. Dean, you and I have looked over signage for a local telephone company that was submitted by a lessee. So it does happen, but it's truly rare that a lessee cares enough to put money into a building.
Yeah.
And so you're a rare bird. We're happy to have you
Well,
on.
that building is a gem. It's a gem. I just love it so much. So you should come see us sometime. I'll treat
Well,
you. You come see us.
I would love to come and just look at the work as it's happening or as it's being completed. So at this point, I'm going to ask if there's any other questions and then ask for a motion. No other questions. So do we have a motion? I would ask that it includes a replacement in kind clause.
I move that we approve the application as submitted with the addition of a clause requiring replacement in kind for those materials.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any other discussion before we take a vote? Hearing none, then I'll ask a vote of thumbs up. Mr. Camlin? Oh. Well done. You got by us. That's one step. You still have to work with Sandy and the state, so best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
If there's anything we can do to help you, either with this project or even advice in the future, you know, we are all very local here. I go by your place of business all the time.
Yeah.
So feel free to talk to Sandy and ask if one of us could come and help you at some point if you have some other ideas, or if Mr. Johansson has some ideas.
Very good. Very good. I'm going to look at these pictures and get some inspiration, and we're going to do it up to make it look exactly the same.
Great. Great.
Thank you for your time.
You bet. Thank you
Thank you,
so
Dawn.
much.
Thank you, Miss Sandy. See you soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Stay well.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. And Sandy, do you need anything from me other than a signature?
I do not, thank you. And I will be sure, though, to get Dave Johansson's written approval for this project, too.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is kind of different. We see these only once a year, don't we, Sandy? And not even every year.
Correct. It's been a while.
It's been a while. It's been a minute. Okay, back to our second step is the Draft Historic Commission Rules of Order and Procedure under new business. And I want to thank Andrew because we have been working on this forever. And I want to thank Andrew for pulling this all together. This is just one piece. There should be a second piece out there as well. Am I correct?
Madam Chair, this will be the only rules of order and procedure for the Historic District Commission. And
Right.
when I go, I'll explain that when I get going through the staff report.
Oh, okay. So do you want us to discuss these rules of order at this point?
And Madam Chair, if you may, I'll just give a brief overview of the staff report and the rules of order.
Please, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On April 3rd, 2019, the Historic District Commission held an informal discussion on the proposed rules of procedure for historic restorations and rehabilitation tax credits. After staff review and discussion, it was determined that the rules of procedure should apply only to commission responsibilities and meeting procedures. Staff will subsequently create procedural documents for both the application for construction, reconstruction, or alteration in a historic zone and the application for historic rehabilitation property tax credits, which will help the public better understand the applicable application process and timeframe. For the creation of the draft rules of order and procedure, staff took into consideration information contained in the charter and code of the City of Westminster, Maryland state law, current commission practice, and information from other historic district commissions in the state of Maryland. It should be noted that once we have the commission's feedback, This information will be forwarded to the city attorney to be reviewed and then subsequently returned to the commission for final review and approval. I would like to point out in the rules under the section Commissioners and Officers, the first section mentions 5 regular members and 1 alternate member. Staff is proposing that the commission consists of 5 regular members and 1 alternate member, just like the Westminster Planning and Zoning Commission. For this to take effect, an ordinance would have to be adopted by the mayor and common council. Staff would also like to set commission elections during the month of May, due to the Planning and Zoning Commission having their elections in May, and it would be helpful for all 4 planning-related boards and commissions to have their election around the same time of year. Staff will also post the commission design guidelines adopted by Resolution 94-4 to the commission website. City staff recommends the Historic District Commission review the attached draft rules of order and procedure for the Historic District Commission and provide any feedback they may have to staff. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So Andrew, I very much appreciate all your efforts and the rest of the team who's put time and effort into it. I do have one question, and I'm sure you've answered it for me 3 or 4 times at this point because this has been a long-going project. Does this change our quorum requirements?
Kristen, the quorum is defined in the rules of procedure as 3 voting members.
Okay. I just didn't see where that was.
Yeah, I read it earlier.
Yeah, I went over this as well. I just thought, wow, that makes life a lot easier for us because the quorum has been difficult for us to cast at times.
I'm wondering for my sake and the sake of Aaron, who are relatively new to this discussion, if there's any other significant changes or context that you can provide to us as we look at this document.
Well, I can give you a little of my perspective. In the past, the application process has been clear to some of us who've served for years and years and years, but sometimes it's not 100% clear. You know, staff changes over. And gosh, since I've been on the board, and Dean, I don't know how many people we've had as city liaisons. And this is a good thing to have administratively, so that people understand there really is a process more than just getting on the agenda and having us consider it. So what this does is it kind of codifies what have been our past practices. To be honest, I think it also does a great job of pulling together all kinds of threads of various other documents that support us. It's almost more like an index of things that support us, so that staff can say, as they're working with the public, you know, this is based on this authority and this piece is based on that authority, rather than it's the way we've always done it. Does that make sense to staff? Is that your opinion?
Yes, I think Andrew, with his experience with HDC, a lot of this just goes off of what, and Sandy and Andrew as well, past practice, and trying to just codify that. And again, provide it for the general public as much as for the HDC members. And again, I think it just gives a good guide for anybody coming to a meeting to understand what they can expect.
Yeah. Like there's one example where it says the chair and vice chair can make a motion and vote on any items before the commission. I sit on some boards where the chair cannot vote. They're the tiebreaker. So it's just good to kind of have this out there so that, you know, it's a paperwork building block, and it pulls together so much. I think that it's a wonderful reference piece. Doesn't it really change stuff, do you think, Dean?
No, it as you said, it really describes how we've been operating over the years.
Mhm.
And that's really helpful for other people to be able to predict how their applications, how their proposals are going to be reviewed and administered.
Mhm.
I-
Like another thing I really like that's well done in this is it says that special meetings can be held. Dean, how many years has it been since we've had a special meeting? A lot. But when someone really needs something that wasn't clarified enough during one of our regular meetings and says, hey, I can pull that budget together in 2 weeks. I need to get this rolling. Can you guys meet? This gives us that opportunity. It doesn't sound like everybody has to drop everything because someone's demanding special treatment. But it does give us an opening to say, you know, we can be responsive to the public. We don't have to be on a monthly stricture that, well, you missed it, so we won't see you till next month. It gives us the opportunity to be clear that there are exceptions.
Chris,
Madam,
actually, we did have a special meeting while you were gone.
Oh.
So it really hasn't been very long.
Madam
All
Chair,
right. I'm sorry, Aaron, what did you have to say?
Madam Chair, if I may, in the rules of procedure, the blue wording here is hot links. So if anybody, a member of the public, staff, or a member of the commission would like to go and see, so for instance, under design guidelines, section 164.51.5, you click that, and that applicable section of our online zoning code, online zoning ordinance would pop up.
So Andrew, under section 9B, number 1, that's a very good question. When would this be adopted? Is it adopted as of our approval, or does it have to go up to an, I know it's got to be reviewed by the lawyer, but does it have to go up to city council, or, you know, what is that adoption process?
That, am I on? Oh, I am not on mute. Sorry about that. The standards for renovation of Westminster will have to be adopted by the mayor and common council pursuant to section 164.51.5 of the zoning ordinance. And we are in the process of that.
So do we put in an estimated date, or do you just put it in once it is approved?
We will put that in once it is approved.
Okay. So I guess I'm one of those type A people, even all those question marks is fine.
Why don't we stay on this section 9? I've got a question on, well, first off, just for appearance sake, in paragraph A, the actual name is Maryland Historical Trust. In paragraph B, we've got 3 statements, 2 and 3, referencing different standards for us to use. Are those additive, or are they alternative?
The standards for renovation Westminster were adopted. There was a previous version adopted by the mayor and common council. There was the new version that was adopted by this body last year. The commission design guidelines, I found that in our paperwork, and I will be subsequently having that added to the Historic District Commission webpage. And then the commission's, or I should say the mayor and common council adopted the 2016 Development Design Preference Manual, and that's for different commissions such as Planning and Zoning Commission, Historic District Commission, and city staff to utilize when reviewing projects within the city of Westminster.
Okay, so my question is, are we required to use all 3 of those, or do we have the discretion to use One, I don't know, because the paragraph introducing each one of those says the commission shall use such and such to review applications.
And Vice Chair Camlin, I would say that the commission shall use all three of them.
All three.
Yes.
Well, we have some studying to do, folks.
But I think, I'm sorry, I think we can look at the language to see if it is a shall or may statement for each one.
Yes, Mark, all three of them say basically the same thing.
Yeah, in the document it does, but we'll look at each of the actual documents themselves and the approvals by the mayor and common council. I agree. I want to make sure the wording is correct. If it's a may statement or a shall statement, or will utilize or something to that effect, whatever the actual document states with how the HCC is to use each document, this should actually repeat that.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a quick question. Is this an update of the, or is this the only draft that's out there? It's just codifying what we've kind of been doing this whole time anyway.
There was an existing set of rules and order and procedure that I found in city files. This is an update from what is in current Maryland law, what the commission has been doing in the last almost 5 years since I've been a staff member here at the city, and current city code.
Andrew,
Any other?
I'm sorry, how old is that first document?
That first document, oh, I'm thinking it was back in the 90s. I am not 100% sure. Vice Chair Camlin, do you know, with your experience and tenure on the commission, when that document may have been adopted by the Historic District Commission?
I'd have to look that up, Andrew, but I think it was probably maybe 15 years ago, mid 2000, like 2005 or something like that. I don't think it was in the 90s.
Okay.
Maybe a first, maybe there was another version of it earlier. I don't know.
And we can get a copy of that to everybody as well.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, do we feel, Andrew, are you comfortable? Is this ready for a vote?
Well, Madam Chair, there would be no vote today. Subsequent to this meeting, I will email you all the Word version. So if you would like to make any corrections, you may email that to me. I will then put all the questions into one document and then send that to Ms. Levan, who is our city attorney. And then once I get comments from our city attorney, this will be placed back on an upcoming Historic District Commission agenda for you all to review. And if you are happy with the rules, for you all to approve.
Okay, so do you need something that tells you to move on to the next step, or?
Let me go up to the staff recommendation, and that is just for for the Historic District Commission to review the attached draft rules of order and procedure and provide any feedback they may have to staff.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, if I may, I think when we send out, maybe it's best if we give it a response date, so then we can actually start planning. The hope would be we can get response in the next 2 weeks, or so we can have this in the very next meeting. So when we send out the Word document, we'll also send out the previous document, and then we'll provide a response date for everybody. So hopefully we can coordinate and get comments back and then have this in front of you next month so we can move forward.
That sounds terrific. I just kind of need a little bit of a plan.
Yeah.
Great. Do we have anything else to consider then?
When you guys send out the rules of procedure, please make sure also to include the design guidelines referenced in paragraph 9C.
We can send out all 3 documents.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific. Well, thank you again to everybody who worked on this.
It was all Andrew. We just provided comments like you.
Well, that's not easy, I gotta say. Thank you so much.
It's a big job.
Thank you.
All right, so we now normally go and ask each commissioner if there's anything that the whole should know about their activities during the last month, whether they've contributed at all to the Historic Commission or if there's some information out there that we should share as an organization. So who'd like to start? How about you, Dean? What have you done? Anything we should know about with the trust?
Not with the trust. I did participate in the first Zoom meeting that the Historical Trust had for the Board of Trustees. And like this, it was a bit of a learning curve. Actually, it wasn't a Zoom meeting. They used some other platform. I have relocated my office. I'm sitting in the new office. Maybe that was the case for our last meeting. I think maybe it was. But we're pretty much moved in now. The settlement on my office building is scheduled for the end of July, so depending on whether we have a July meeting, this may be my last.
Oh.
So,
All right, thank you so much. We're gonna miss you.
been a minute.
We usually do cookies or something. Usually we have a little something for the people who are leaving, as long as I know in advance, you know?
Oh, this reminds me, that was one comment that I had on the rules of procedure, that maybe there should be something said in the rules of procedure defining what a meeting constitutes. That it doesn't have to be a face-to-face meeting, but it can be one like we're having right now.
That's a good idea.
It's really kind of silent along those lines.
And that is a good idea. And while we're at it, we are looking at the rules, Dean. If we can just add your name to be a standard member of the HTC in perpetuity.
I'm sorry, Mark, I didn't hear all that.
I said we can just add your name to the rules and you can just be an HTC member in perpetuity.
I think that would violate the ordinance. Which, by the way, they had to, the mayor and council voted on a revision to the ordinance when I was no longer a citizen. When I moved out of town, that was 7 years ago now. Kind of hard to believe, but anyway, they revised it so that commission members could also be property owners in town. Well, now I'm stepping out of that role too. So I don't want them to rewrite it again.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dean, and thank you for everything, to be honest. I'm hoping you're still with us in July, but you know, you and I have been down this road for a long time, and I really want to thank you for everything. So, Aaron, do you have anything for this month?
No, I have nothing for the commission at this time.
And Josh?
No, ma'am, nothing new for me.
Okay, great. How about staff and public comments?
Just a quick update on outdoor seating for restaurants. We put together a survey that Sandy sent out to downtown restaurants and to the chamber, trying to get responses back. And Sandy, I think she said 7 people have responded. The survey goes over whether they want outdoor seating, if they would be interested in us closing down Main Street on a weekly basis, Friday to Sunday, or possibly just closing the parallel parking spaces, use that for pedestrian movement so the entire sidewalk can be used and still allow vehicular traffic. So we just had that a survey to get some feedback. Also, we are implementing guidelines for people that want to do outdoor seating, whether on the sidewalk or parking lot. And also the applications for those, we're recommending to waive the fees. It's a fairly basic sketch plan for outdoor seating for sidewalks. We provide some examples, some guidelines that we hope people can follow, primarily ADA compliance and roping or closing off the section and other little things. So again, we're ramping up for that. We hope to have something like that out by tomorrow. So Sandy can start sharing that with the restaurants so we can start handling applications and getting some of these things approved rather quickly so we can get the restaurants operating again.
Yeah, Mark, if there's anything that we can do to boost the signal on that, I think both propositions are excellent. I've long recommended that we explore shutting down Main Street on a more regular basis. So if there's anything we can do to boost the signal on that, make sure people are filling out surveys, spreading the word with any of our networks, please let us know.
That's great. Yeah, Sandy can certainly send you the survey. I think the issue or concern that we have is people actually using it. To close off the street, it takes, communication with State Highway Administration, Police Department for staffing. The fear is that we start closing a lot of these things and people do not take advantage of it. So that's the need for the survey. We hope that more people respond saying they are interested and will participate. So we can start moving forward with that. I know the city of Frederick is also looking at some concept of closing streets and they are doing a survey as well. And I'm sure other jurisdictions are looking at the same thing. So again, it's something we're interested in and we're ramping up on. The concern is, will we have the participation that we really need? And the hope is yes, because people want to get out and restaurants want to open. And not only restaurants, but we are also going to do one for retail businesses as well. So we haven't forgotten about them for outdoor displays of merchandise and also including them in the closing of the streets or use of the parking space for travelways.
Yeah, if there is ever a time to do it, now is the time to trial it. And the good news is, of course, that there are cities who have very successfully done this. So hopefully we can use some of those as examples to share with folks. I think of course, you're the expert and just the amount of coordination that it will take and the amount of buy-in. But again, anything we can do to boost the signal on that buy-in, I think it's an experiment worth having.
I appreciate that. I think the more people are involved and aware of it, the better. So yes, absolutely.
He reached out to you at all, offering willingness or extending willingness to waive any particular guidelines that would typically be in place for something like this? Like you said, you have to typically coordinate with State Highway Administration. Have they said, hey, we're willing to do this, all you have to do is ask? Anything like that from the state?
It's an actual application that we have to provide to the state. The police chief coordinates with them, and he has already reached out to State Highway, so they are fully aware of what we're intending to do. So again, we're preparing for it. The survey just is going to help us to then determine or to move forward with it. As far as the process and waiving fees, it's not a substantial fee in the first place, but we felt that we're trying to encourage this type of use. And I think the sketch plan and that we provide, what we're looking for, should be a quick turnaround. We've coordinated with, well, we haven't, the county has, with the health department and the liquor board. And they themselves have come up with a quick process, also a basic sketch plan, as opposed to submitting an application, waiting 7 days to 10 days to get a response. The inspector can just look at the sketch plan and approve it. And I would assume the sketch plan that they're providing to him would be something similar to what we're asking for too. So I think collectively, once this gets going, it should be fairly simple.
So I gotta say, Mark, you're working at warp speed, because I listened to the mayor and council meeting with Dehoff and Thomas Gilbert, just fleshing this idea out, and that was late last week. So I know you're working on a really compressed time schedule with this, and you know, to me, I think everybody who can be for it is for it. I think the only concern is, you know, what's our emergency safety abilities to get ambulances from one part of town to the other. You know, if we actually close down a street versus a few parking spots, it's another worry. But that's actually not for us to consider with the Historic District Commission. We just are looking at the historic fabric of the buildings and as they're affected. But it's great to hear what other commissions and organizations are working on.
But I think you guys, especially with the work you do in downtown, and the knowledge you have and the interaction you have with downtown business owners, I think that's important.
Absolutely. Great. So was there any other staff comments?
No, ma'am.
Not at this time.
Okay, so I see nothing else but adjournment. Sound good?
Thank you.
All in favor? Thumbs up?
Teams them.
Thank you, everyone, so much.
Thank you.
I'll hope to see you
Thank
all,
you.
including you, Dean, next month.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.